Joining us now is the aforementioned ace columnist, Miranda Devine, New York Post columnist. She usually writes the first 10 or 12 pages of the newspaper. She is also a Fox News contributor. We welcome Brianna Lyman, correspondent at The Federalist. First time on the show, I believe, here on set. And my pal Mike Davis, founder of Article 3 Project. Great lawyer, somewhere is out in the ether zone. Thanks, all of you, for coming on. Miranda, I begin with you. Your column was part of the muse for this. You and I have been talking about this at some length. We started at the beginning of the week. I appreciate what you say. But I think, look, your column was brilliant, and Trump posted in its entirety. And, good on you. You deserve it. But his posting was very important, too. I mean, he's laying it out. Okay? He is the president. Yeah. And these judges don't want him to be the president. But it's not up to them to decide. We had a vote last November 5th.
Exactly. And look, they're now parading around as if they are the arbiters of the rule of law, and they have a whole slew of, commentators getting in behind them and saying that we need these judges to hold the president accountable. Where were they during the 4 lawless years of Joe Biden? Oh. Nowhere to be seen. So you cannot, it's just like the Department of Justice was picking and choosing who its targets were. Now we have the same activists, anarchists like the ACLU, who basically ran the Biden administration, which was ushering in all these alien criminals. And now those same activists, ACLU, etc., are controlling the government, or trying to, via the judiciary. It has to stop. And look, I'm not into impeaching judges, right, but I think Mike Davis is one who makes a very good point, and there are Republicans in Congress who want to at least start impeachment proceedings against Judge Boasberg, who, remember, was the same judge who gave a slap on the wrist to Kevin Klein-Smith, the only person who was ever convicted in the whole Russia collusion scandal. So he picks and chooses himself about how tough he goes.
Mike Davis, something has to happen. I'm not sure what the best thing. Newt Gingrich, who is a friend and mentor to me, and I think to all of us conservatives. But look, Newt suggests that the judges, these activist judges, be called in front of the Judiciary Committee of the House. I asked Jim Jordan about that. He wasn't really thrilled about it because he figured it would take too long and so forth and so on. But, Mike, something's got to happen. John Roberts and the Supreme Court have got to step in. You tell me, something's got to happen here. This cannot last. The verdict was made by the voters last November 5th, as you well know. These judges and the people choosing them, and those people who are financing the people who are choosing them, are trying to subvert and undermine the election and the mandate that was given President Trump. Mike Davis, something's got to change.
That's exactly right. President Trump campaigned on the facts. He's going to secure our border. He's going to get these dangerous illegal immigrants the hell out of our country, and he's going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and he's doing the unthinkable. He's actually doing what he promised American voters he's going to do. You have these left-wing radical judges, particularly in Washington, D.C., who are sabotaging the presidency. They're the election deniers. And if the Chief Justice, John Roberts, refuses to get his judicial house in order, Congress must do it for them. Cut their funding, cut their jurisdiction, hold the most dangerous, lawless judges accountable through impeachment proceedings. This must end.
Brianna Lyman, first of all, welcome on set to our show, and I appreciate your column here. The judicial coup. I mean, this was a reminder. It's a very important piece, very useful piece, who these judges were. Boasberg trying to stop the deportations. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of it, but it is kind of a coup. I mean, that's really kind of the point that occurs to me. Having read what Miranda has been writing and talking about it this week on the show, they are essentially undermining the election. You can't stop a president. I've never seen anything like. Now and then you have major league cases, like really big cases. But this is like every little policy thing that Trump is doing, they are trying to stop. They are obstructing the votes of the people who, they're judges, so presumably they believe in juries, but the jury voted last November 5th, did it not? I mean, in other words, there's a certain logic to their stupidity that I'm trying to raise.
Right. And undermining the election is a great point, because what we have to remember here is that you have activists who are going around and they are venue shopping for friendly activist judges. And when you have judicial tyranny that John Roberts squandered an opportunity to put a stop to, you send the message that these activists can continue venue searching.
Can I stop you right there? I don't mean to interrupt. Just give me a sentence on the John Roberts thing. Not everybody. Some people think he was voting on a technicality. Other people think not. Tell me, what is Roberts supposed to do here?
What Roberts should do is they should rule on the merit or get to the merit of whether or not an inferior court judge has the authority or the jurisdiction to issue these injunctions. And Clarence Thomas, I think it might have been Trump v. Hawaii back in 2018, he actually asked this: do these inferior court judges have this authority? We need an answer to that question. Otherwise, we are going to have the next 4 years be lawfare 2.0. And that's not what the American people voted for.
You think that's right, Miranda? I mean, we're the non-lawyers. Are you a lawyer?
No.
No, it's much more fun than that. I'm not a lawyer either.
Same team.
Supremes just have to, something's got to, no, let me step back. I don't think that's right. I can't imagine the Supreme Court saying it's okay for these nationwide injunctions on every policy. I can't imagine it. I think it would be absolutely incredibly. It'd be totally unacceptable.
Well, I mean, I would hope not. And I would hope that John Roberts' sort of implicit scolding of Donald Trump over the impeachment conversations about Judge Boasberg was just his way of sort of putting the groundwork for being an impartial observer so that they don't get attacked so much. I think that's what he cares so much about. So maybe that's as a prelude to the Supreme Court. They will have already got their thoughts together. They've maybe had meetings together. They cannot let this stand because it is so destructive to the judiciary because, as you said, Donald Trump is keeping his campaign promises. He was elected by the popular vote, as well as, and a majority of every swing state. He couldn't have had a clearer mandate. It's just 6 months ago, 5 months ago. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to put themselves up against the American people, which is what this would be.
All right, Mike Davis, I'm going to switch gears. I just got a note, just breaking news right here. Columbia University has apparently folded, and they have agreed to the administration's position, the Trump administration position. And in particular, Mike, this is one that I really love, okay? Whether they get their money back or not, I have no idea, because this is supposed to be the beginning of the conversation. But the Department of Middle East and Palestinian Studies, okay, where'd that come from? Middle East and Palestinian Studies will be put into a receivership under strict control of a vice provost, all right? And they will ban masks, and they will put in new police powers. So Columbia may be adjusting to the Trump era, Mike Davis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Joe Biden let these Hamas terrorist supporters terrorize Jewish students and faculty members on these college campuses for years. It took President Trump threatening.
This is just the preconditions to restoring their funding grants and whatnot. Shed no tears for these big elite universities. They all have endowments of 20, 30, 50 billion with a B dollars, plus cash reserves that you wouldn't believe. Brianna, Lyman, Democrats will not denounce the domestic terrorism aimed at Elon Musk. Now, this is an unbelievable story. I mean, it's unbelievable that people would be throwing Molotov cocktails at a guy who's a super patriot, America's leading technology genius, who brought home astronauts, cosmonaut, for heaven's sakes, who basically saved the country, saved the whole country of Ukraine, and so forth and so on, saved people in North Carolina. But here's the thing. I have yet to hear, I don't know what a leading Democrat is nowadays, but they have the offices. People like, let's just say Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or people like, I don't know, Jeffries, whatever. No one, you can not like Elon, right? No, not one of them has said no to violence. Not one of them. To me, this is incredible.
Right, and the left has a very big habit of having grievance-based violence. We saw during the 2020, the Black Lives Matter riots, $1 billion in property damage, the murder of David Dorn, so many people injured. And we were told that that was a fiery but mostly peaceful protest and the summer of love. Now you have Elon Musk and Tesla being attacked, and we're told that it is a protest. You have conservatives being swatted, and it's barely making making news. And the reason is the left has had such a monopoly on the media for so long. They have been able to use the media to sweep these things under the rug, to downplay it. And when you do that, you don't put Democrats in the hot seat and force them to have accountability for actions within their own party.
They're just not saying anything about violence.
Yeah, because they don't have any. No one's pushing them or asking them.
Miranda,
Well, I mean,
no, it isn't. I get it that they hate Elon Musk. Okay, I mean, I don't get it, but I understand they hate Elon Musk. I interviewed him for just short of 20 minutes, and he is one smart fella. But putting all that aside, the issue here is this political terrorism and violence. Violence has no place in the political marketplace, but the Democrats will not say a word about it. All their stupidities, in a sense, everything they've done, which is so stupid since November 5th, this may be the worst.
Yeah, but I mean, as Brianna just said, this is their MO. These are their street militants. These are the street fighters of the Democratic Party, and that's how they intimidate people. That's what they did in 2020 with the violent Summer of Love protests, and that's what they're doing now. And Chuck Schumer as much as said it, that the whole point of attacking Tesla and Elon Musk is to send a message so that nobody else takes the risk. Nobody with the kind of assets that Elon Musk has to lose will take the risk and go and help Donald Trump. And obviously Elon is being incredibly effective because they have put all in to try and destroy him. They're doing a pretty good job, and I hope he stands strong and that everybody in America who can will stand up for him and tell him what a great job he's doing. I mean, it's a huge sacrifice.
And it's a huge, Democrats will be punished by this. They will be punished for not standing up to violence. By the way, Mike Davis, I'm assuming the FBI, under Kash Patel, who was a dear friend of mine, perhaps yours as well, the FBI is really doing its job. They're finding these crazy people. They're going to look for more. You know, President Trump posted something on Truth Social saying that at some of these protests around Tesla showrooms, that turns out the placards are all made by the same company, Mike Davis. I got to believe Kash Patel and the FBI, I'm going to call it the new FBI, is hot on the trail. And more people are going to get busted by Pam Bondi.
Yeah, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are going to hunt these people down. Democrats think these are mostly peaceful Molotovs, but they're going to be hunted down and thrown in prison.
What a peaceful Molotov, Mike? Could you possibly help us on that? What exactly are you telling me, a peaceful Molotov?
It's a mostly peaceful Molotov, like those mostly peaceful protests by BLM.
All right, you're terrific stuff. Miranda Devine, Brianna, Lyman, Mike Davis, we appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.